Thank you for taking 5 minutes out of your day here in our segment called Take 5. If this is your first time joining us, for the past 5 or so weeks, we've been taking 5 minutes out of your schedule, giving you a bit of a preview of what is coming up on Sunday. And so with no further ado, just a little bit to kind of get your mind thinking and tracking in the right direction, right? Well, if you've been around us for the last 4 or 5, 6 Sundays or so, we've been on this teaching series called Redefine. There's these redefining statements that are all throughout the Gospels. Jesus would say, if you want to find your life, you need to lose your life for my sake. If you want to be first or greatest in my kingdom, you need to be the least and you need to be the last, right? These are these redefining statements. And so over the last 5 weeks or so, we've been looking at a redefinition of greatness by looking at a guy by the name of John the Baptist, whom Jesus called the greatest man born among women who has ever lived. So we've been looking at the definition from God's perspective of greatness. And we certainly have been spending some time examining the life of John the Baptist. He knew who he was. He knew what he was called to do. It's actually in the title of his name. He called people to repentance. He knew his place as well. His greatest line was, less of me, I must decrease, he must increase, more of Jesus. He knew how to die well as well, right? And so we've spent the last couple weeks looking at how, even though John was in prison, even though he was beheaded, he was actually the most free man in that entire scene and scenario. Well, we're going to be switching gears for the next several weeks, and we're going to be looking at our gatherings, right? So we looked at John the Baptist in terms of greatness. Now we're going to look at that in a corporate aspect. What does it mean to be great in terms of our gatherings? And our text for the next several weeks is going to be found in the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and chapter 3. If you're familiar with the book of Revelation, it is really the theme of unveiled hope. It was written to 7 actual churches, which is in now modern day Turkey or Asia Minor. And the people who first received this, these 7 churches who were basically within a 50-mile radius of one another, would have understood everything that the Apostle John was writing. Now, the Revelation has this reputation of being a very mysterious book, a book that talks only really about the future, and it certainly talks about things that are to come. But also, it is very practical, especially in chapters 2 and 3. These are a report card. It's a report card that Jesus gives these 7 churches, and it is not a review that oftentimes you would think of in terms of, boy, I really don't want to hear this, right? Tammy and I, a number of years ago, went to a marriage retreat. This was before Cameron was born. And as we were there, it was all about how horrible, our marriages must have been. And after that retreat, we looked at each other and we go, I don't think we'll ever go back, right? And so we were asked to go back next year, and we decided just to do our own retreat. We went away for a weekend and we had a good time, right? When it comes to these 7 churches, not only are they churches, literal churches, and Jesus challenges them and he encourages them, but he treats them as his bride. Jesus does not come down and offer just criticism without hope. And so the next several weeks, this is not going to be some type of a 5-week bash on the modern church through the lens of 2nd Revelation and 3rd Revelation, these chapters. We're going to find this is actually going to be encouraging. We're going to find this is going to be challenging. We find this might be revealing, but it's not going to feel like this heavy burden of no hope. In fact, really the theme of Revelation is unveiled hope. It is a book of hope. Yes, there are some challenging parts in the things that are to come. There are also some challenging things and aspects of these 7 churches, right? There were some churches that received nothing but good favor, and there were some churches who received nothing but correction, and there were churches in between that received a mixture of those. Jesus will do that. He has a right to do that. We're actually going to spend some time in the first chapter of Revelation, where Jesus is basically introduced as the one who gets to sit in judgment of his church. And yet, at the same time, he's also talking about his bride. And so we hope that you'll be encouraged over the next several weeks as we look at a redefinition of our gatherings, what it means to be not just individually great, as we looked at John the Baptist, but corporately great. Jesus gets to define greatness in regard to his church. We hope that you will join us. Thank you for taking 5 minutes out of your schedule. Hope to see you Sunday, 10 o'clock. Bye.